Okay, we're going to start working on the rear fender flares for the Jeep. First thing you got to do is take off that tire. Let's go ahead and break these loose. Yep, there we go. For safety, just go ahead and throw this underneath the vehicle. Alright, now let's take the splash guard out. It's got these little pins in here. It's easy, just push that pin in and then pull it off with the panel prior. The kit came with more of these clips, so you do not need to save the old ones. Come out intact. Yes, there we go. Come on. Alright. Get this panel out, there we go. That was easy. Alright, there's two 10mm bolts in here on the inside. Go ahead and remove those. Maybe on different years and submodels these bolts come out, but for my year and my model, those bolts had a washer attached to the other side and they would not come all the way out. As I was loosening them, it was physically pushing the bumper away from the vehicle. Fuck, you're supposed to remove these bolts. That's fucking stupid, huh? These bolts don't come off. It says in the instructions to remove these bolts. These bolts aren't coming off. I got some like weird double-sided thing on them. They're not coming off for me, at least. So we'll just cut them out. All right, now we're going to mark the bumper for cutting. We're going to start at the top with 1 3/4, taper it in to 1 7/8 down to 2 inches down here. So from the top of the bumper, say 1 3/4 is right there. Middle of the bumper. One 7/8. And at the bottom down here, 2 inches. Go ahead and use some tape to mark a guideline through here. And there we go. Double check these measurements real quick. It's 1 3/4. It's about 1 7/8 right there. Down here, 2 inches. Okay, once you're comfortable with your line you got here, just go ahead and draw it on. Okay, starting from the corner of your bumper here, let's go ahead and mark 4 inches over. And then mark it about 1/4 of an inch up. Now you could either use some tape or just freehand a line through here. Be pretty close. Just grind it down a little bit. Just make sure it's about even with that. Okay, we're not going to cut this piece off yet. We're just going to cut the trim off the plastic bumper. And your finger. Fuck, that hurt. Ooh, yeah, that got me. Fuck. Be very fucking careful with these things, dude. Put some thicker fucking gloves on.
Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and cut this bumper support off parallel to where we just made that other cut. Go. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and cut these two bolts out because those were supposed to come out. Okay, now that's the way it was supposed to be. So let's go ahead and start marking some lines here. Okay, so it wants it about 1.25 inches above this hole here, which is probably the top, I guess, right there. So just go ahead and mark this about 1/8 of an inch in.
You basically just need to cut off this outer lip.
There we go. Once you feel comfortable with the line you got here, it should be about 1/4 of an inch inwards. Let's go ahead and cut that off. Getting tight in here. Go from a different angle. Shit. Okay, once you've cut this little piece off of here, go ahead and make some marks in here. About every 1.5 inches, 2 inches or so. It doesn't have to be that far in. You can see how far you're going to want it in on this side. It's only about that much on each one. Okay? Alright, let's go ahead and cut these vertical lines in here. Take your big hammer, get the hammer time on this.
As you can see, with each swing of the hammer, this metal is pretty soft, and it wouldn't take a lot to whack it way out of shape.
Alright, now we can get to cutting this part. Go ahead and mark a couple of notches in it. There we go. That'll work. Put my safety back on. Sorry, Jeep. So just kind of flatten these out and then bring them inwards as best you can. A double layer on this one here. Damn.
You're going to want to fold and hammer this lip inwards to make it nice and clean. That's looking pretty good.
Okay, now that you got this all cut out and hammered in there, that's what it should kind of look like. Let's go ahead and grind it down, get all these paint chips. Fuck. Alright, now let's go ahead and grind it down. Try and get as much of these paint chips off of here as we can.
Take a wire brush to it and try and knock off as much of those loose paint chips as you can and just generally clean the area up.
Cool. Now that is ready to put some seam sealer on there and it'll protect it from any rust.
You're going to want to use a lot of seam sealer in this area here. Seal it up really good, make it look like it came from the factory. I opened this container up the previous weekend, and in that time it has thickened up quite a bit.
Okay, now figure out which pieces. So go through your big box of stuff, figure out which pieces are go to where. This one goes here, and I'm gonna look for the one that looks like this that goes down here. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty sweet. These bolt together, so let's bolt these together. So you're gonna need a 7/16 inch for this and a 3/8 for this one. This way, dipshit. So make sure your alignment is real good and you're satisfied with that. And then you can tighten the screws down all the way. Alright, that piece is ready to go. Okay, as I was test fitting this on here, I noticed I didn't cut enough out of here, so can't really go wrong. You can cut a little bit more than what the thing says. I would actually recommend maybe cutting just a little bit more than what it says, because I obviously didn't cut enough. Let's go ahead and line this up here. Now, make sure you get it. Make sure you get it just right. I'm going to hold it kind of backwards like this. Japanese. That's why I fucking hate motorcycle riders. They're a bunch of fucking idiots. Alright, so let's go ahead and hold it back. So you're going to have to hold it back pretty far. Make sure your door closes. Yep, that's where you want that. Mark a line right down here. Just like that. So from this line here, you're going to mark 3/4 of an inch.
Okay, sorry about the camera angle on this one, as these measurements are very important. Make a line 1 1/4 inch inwards from the edge of the wheel well, going from the bottom up to about 1 3/4 above the cladding.
Now this is the top of your cladding line right here. Measure up 1 3/4 inch from that. Alright, so I'm going to tape it off so I get a good line on it.
This line is very close to the edge and you do not want to overcut. You should always double check your measurements.
As you can see, I put the line just a little bit on the outside of my dots. Probably will just grind it down a little bit once I get this final cut in. I just don't want to cut too much. Okay, so this is the stupid fucking template that they gave you. It's not even fucking close to what they want you to do. It says right here to fucking reprint it and rescale this shit. Thanks, guys. You know, thanks a whole hell of a lot. I don't have a fucking printer, so let's go ahead and just freehand it, I guess. Yeah, awesome. Dicks. Okay, so this is the style line right here. Just mark it 3 inches inwards from that.
Because that template they gave me was garbage, I'm just going to use a couple pieces of tape to draw that line on from here.
Like I said, it's better to not trim enough and have to grind it down a little bit than to trim too darn much. Alright, now we're just going to make some marks. This part's pretty easy. It's going to be about 2 inches apart. Around this part here, you're going to want it a little bit closer. Out here, it could be about 2 inches apart. Right here, you should paint maybe about 1 inch. Happy with those lines, I guess. Do not overcut this area. So like I said, make it a little bit on this side of your markings, make your cuts a little bit on this side of the markings. Let's go ahead and get to it. Alright, let's get to cutting. Sorry, Jeep. Alright, I got all this cut. Let's go ahead and cut it down this way.
This is where you're definitely going to need a 4.5 inch cutoff wheel or even a sawzall with a really nice blade on it. Might make this part a little bit easier. This area is difficult to cut because it's double walled, and it gets thicker the farther down you go. It's smoking a lot when I'm cutting it because there's some kind of foam insulation material on the inside.
finish cutting out this bottom section here. Now, you could draw some lines here. I'm just going to make the cuts.
After you did those cuts, go ahead and hammer that intersection in nice and flat.
Got that all pounded in. It's looking good. That's not going to need any flatter. Alright, let's go ahead and clean this area up a little bit. Okay, now that you got this all cut off and ground down, smoothed out a little bit, go ahead and test fit this piece here. I actually had to cut just a little bit back in here more. It's on there pretty good, but I don't like this gap here. So I'll just smooth that out a little bit. And this is why it's really important to not cut too far. As you can see down here where I got mad and I was cussing earlier, yeah, that's why. I fucked that up bad. I think I'm just going to run some bed liner through here, kind of hide that. Okay, so now I'm just going to run some masking tape around here so that way when I go to caulk it, it's not a ton of overlay.
Try and get that tape on there as close as you can to the edge because that trim piece is a very tight fit and you don't want it to look really messy. Go ahead and use a generous amount of seam sealer in this area.
Peel this tape off real quick. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 holes in here that you want to
drill out with a 3/32 drill bit.
Get it into place where you want it perfectly, permanently. Go ahead and put these 4 screws in. Okay, so throw the splash guard back in here. It's going to come with new clips. Don't put them in all the way it says, so just put them in like so. Not all the way, just enough to hold it in there. Alright, go ahead and put the trim on. This piece here, you can put it on the bumper down here.
I have a custom rear bumper being built that I'm putting on shortly. Get it lined up nice, hold it into place, and start marking out your holes. After you got those holes marked out, I recommend you take it back off, put it back on, just so you can double check and make sure those holes are going to line perfectly the way you had it before you drill those holes. Now that you got those holes marked out, you're going to want to cover it back over some tape, prevent paint chipping while drilling.
I'm going to hold, place it back up on there real quick.
The reason why you want to use a center punch tool or something similar is to give that drill bit a little groove to dig into and not want to slide all over the place.
So I put one of the bolts in. Got to use the washers that come with them to hold them in there. I'm going to put this first one on. Going to screw it down just like a few things. I'm not even tightening that up at all. I just need to get it so I come in here and drill some holes out for in here. Okay, to mark out these two inner ones was pretty easy. I just stuck a marker in there and moved this around a little bit. Got it. Stuck a marker in there, moved it around a little bit, and got it. Take this off and I'll show you the mark. So I got one little marking right here and another little marking right there. We're going to mount some tabs too. Alright, this part's going to be pretty easy. This is my marker right here. I'm just going to line this up with that. Show me out a hole. Same thing with this one down here. Bam. Here's a 3 3/16 bit. Run it in. Here's the supplied bolts. It's going to be these really small ones and the Loctite washers. Okay, to get these screws in here is really simple. Like I showed you earlier, just gotta attach them with the washer and the torque that's on there. Tighten that all the way down on each one of them. Alright, now that you got all your bolts in here, let's go ahead and bolt this thing on, man. I'm excited.
Even though I triple checked the alignment on those holes before I drilled them out, it still takes a bit of finessing and pressure to get those bolts to line up into place.
Alright, final steps of this piece right here before I go over here. Let's put some retainers in this.
Adding those two panel retainers really stiffens up that bottom area.
Drill a hole through here.
Drill out these holes with a 1/8 drill bit. Don't know why they didn't give you self-tapping screws this part, but go ahead and put your two screws in there now that you drilled out holes.
Bam! This piece is done. Let's go ahead and start working on this piece. Alright, so let's just hold this up here. Got it in place. Mark a line down here. That's where you're going to be cutting.
You're going to have to use some panel poppers to get it started. It's got a very strong double-sided sticky tape at the bottom. And the top just pops in and out of place with plastic clips.
That motherfucker's on there good. Cut this out. Okay, so I just laid down a piece of tape 1/4 of an inch above my line here. I'm gonna cut right there. Don't cut over this way too much or it won't fit snugly. You'll have a big ugly gap in there. So anything, cut more this way and then grind it down if you have to. Go ahead and clean up this area real quick. Okay, use some of this alcohol here to clean along the bottom edge of this and the bottom edge of your door. Make sure it's nice and clean before you put the new tape back on it. Alright, got the trim on here. Let's go ahead and line it up.
Make sure the door gap lines up properly. Once you're happy with where you have it, go ahead and mark those holes out.
Put some tape on that real quick, remark it.
By adding the tape and remarking these holes out, it's just like double checking your measurements. And you only get one shot at getting these measurements right. After you get done marking those holes out, go ahead and use a center punch tool on them before you drill them out.
Alright, once you got all your bolts in here, let's go ahead and bolt it on, man. We are in our final steps. Last leg of the race. Okay, you're supposed to add the double-sided sticky tape along the bottom here before you install this, but I'm going to be taking this back off shortly to have it painted. Alright, so I'm just going to pop this on. Bam! That looks sick. Put this tire back on here. Alright, so I got the fender flares done. Bumper's off because I got a new bumper coming. Yeah, that's real nice. The big reason why I'm putting rock sliders on. Yeah, it's a bit late, but you know, let's go ahead and get it ready for next time I go out.
This is a uniframe stiffener made of 3/16" plate steel from Iron Rock Off-Road. Installing the front and rear bumpers along with the rock sliders should be my next videos coming up.